Right, so I've been thinking about some things, which is a rarity for me, but here we go. So I've been thinking about what it means to be efficient in a team and why it's so important. You know, in the Atlassian space, I imagine a lot of people who are engaging with this video probably use Jira in some way. So what I thought I'd speak about is more around how teams who don't use productivity software can gain efficiencies within their team. I'll put a few scenarios out for you. I've seen so many of these over the years. That's the funny thing. I bet there's people out there watching this who are using email and Excel are normally the culprits to manage teamwork. There's a lot of reasons why this is really inefficient. One being you often react to who shouts loudest. You know, who sent the angriest email? Is it in the top of your inbox? Therefore, prioritization is out the window before you even start. The second idea is where the team, you know, maybe your manager is saying, I need you to fill in this Excel spreadsheet when you've done X, Y, and Z. As you'll know, that means that piece of data in the Excel spreadsheet is only ever true or correct at the moment you're updating it. Post then it isn't. We also end up in that lovely world within the Excel documents, particularly of having version 1.5.5.5 final, version 7, and all those awful things that maybe some of you remember when you used to use tools in that way. One of the things I'd like you to think about is you might think, oh, you know, my team doesn't need a productivity tool. It's fine. We're just working away. Ask yourself this question. Before COVID, did you used to get people coming up to your desk saying, can I nick you for a minute? Won't take a sec. All those classic phrases. Secondary, if you're on, obviously, the more remote world we're in now, does that same thing happen, but via maybe a Slack or a Teams message, or again, via an email? If you fall into that capacity and your team has things to do, which really is every business team in all the companies we work in, then you absolutely fall into this category that we're talking about. Give you some nice examples of the way you can revolutionize your team, create more ownership, and focus on the actual projects that impact the business, which is the way we should all be thinking about our teamwork. Interesting way is by literally just sticking a service desk in front of your team. So if you imagine it a little bit like a bodyguard outside your office, everybody who wants to communicate with you has to put in a ticket. In development particularly, we all hear, put it on a ticket, put it on a ticket. It's this language which PMs will definitely be used to. So let me start with a legal team, for example. Probably not many legal people watching this, so it's one I suppose we can all envisage. So they have a legal team internally. They have certain work that gets requested from various parts of the business, be it contract negotiations, term reviews, forms being filled out in relation to various initiatives. Now, imagine receiving all that workload via email. First of all, the receiver of the email, how do they then decide what's the biggest priority? Again, it's probably the person who's the angriest and shouted the loudest, or most senior, typical examples of the way we manage workload. So what you can do is you can look to put a service desk in front of that team. Think of it really simply. It's a bodyguard outside your office door, and whoever comes to that door, you're going to ask them for certain pieces of information. The reason you're going to do that is, first of all, it helps you deal with that request quicker. We've all received the email where the request doesn't actually contain all the information we need to solve that particular task. So by putting a service desk in front of your department, you are able to list the key information you need. So in a legal scenario, again, we're talking, tell me the name of the contract, tell me the deadline, tell me some extra information that may be admissible in terms of this particular piece of paperwork. Simple example, 3 or 4 fields and an upload, and tell me when it needs to be given by. You can put priorities on there, and then suddenly when that request was received by the legal department, they simply go through, prioritize their work accordingly, and begin working on it. It provides so much more greater efficiencies, mainly because of the disruption. Disruption is one of the killers of productivity in organisations. The data and the stats around focus time versus interruption are quite amazing, really. All of us need to learn about that idea of having these focus times in the day so we can get work done. Real businesses that achieve great things allow their people the time to focus on the projects which are driven from initiative level, from the senior leadership team, which then contribute to bottom line and the overall success of the business. So learn to think in that way. And if yourself, you are not actually working this way, demand it. Say to your manager, can't work this way. I need a way to be able to prioritize. I can't be jumping at the drop of a hat because a request has come in, which quite frankly, when I review it, isn't as important as the person made out to be. But rather than causing the kind of conflict that type of conversation can have, suggesting ways to solve that problem is a way which you will personally gain credibility for within the business, but you will also make your life easier. So it's both sides of it, really. So we're talking about efficiency, really good example, I think, from a legal perspective. And let me bring it a bit more closer to home. So maybe you are running a business that makes software or makes products, and maybe, or very likely, your dev team are using products like Jira. Where we're finding efficiencies can be brought is on the peripheral of this development team. So project managers are instrumental in the delivery of agile projects these days, and often live very deep within products like Jira, almost right down to the task level. We found, again, by introducing some form of service desk, you'll know Jira Service Management offers that, it allows them to prioritise their work, focus on what's important, and again, demand and request the correct information first time. You combine that by linking it with other solutions like a Confluence, for example, where you can provide templates, where you can provide answers before questions are asked. Suddenly this solution really starts to intertwine. One of the real benefits of the new Atlassian SaaS platform is this. It's exactly that, it's a platform. So what you start to do is align certain teams, jobs, requirements across the platform, giving them an environment to work in that feels right for them. We know that a typical developer deep in Jira will have a different requirement, even for the look and feel, as a PM would looking at the overarching outcomes of a particular project. So we're thinking about boosting team efficiency in under 1 month using Atlassian. So a big question mark at the end of that, and a big question for us all. Another area of focus which I would like you to consider is if you're running a service management team within IT. Chances are, statistically, that your organisation will have Jira somewhere, but very much historically, IT and development have very much lived in silos. One of the areas to investigate if you are running an IT team is what technology are you using to gather your requests. Now, you could be using one of the Magic Quadrant tools, which means you're very much using modern tooling. You're probably using some form of IT service management or ITIL in some capacity, and therefore you've probably got a reasonable handle on things. But having been in this job and this industry for over 10 years in the Atlassian space, it fascinates me to see famous organisations which you know from the high street or from TV or the internet, that have IT teams living off legacy service management products which are either built internally, which happens more than you'd think, or are very much legacy, which means they are doing work and they are achieving results, let's say, but what they're not doing is being able to pass the information around the business. There's cut and pasting going on, which makes me want to cry when I hear about someone's job is to transition a ticket by cut and pasting it. All of these types of ways of working are now really far more viable via the Atlassian platform. So we're focusing on an IT service management team. If you fall into that position of having a legacy application, which statistically 25% of service management teams do, now is the time to review the service management element of the Jira platform. See if the devs are using it internally. Typically they will be. That helps with the use case, because if the devs are using it internally, they will be on a route towards the Atlassian cloud or the Atlassian SaaS platform if they're not there already, which means you can bring ROI to your enablement project across IT a lot quicker. So you've got the idea, you've found some people internally to assist you. Now it's about how quickly can you get this thing going and adding value. So we talked about within a month. It's really possible. In fact, Clearvision can set up service desks or service management solutions in days. Even a larger implementation is a couple of weeks. It's certainly not months. So gone are the ServiceNow days of months and months of implementation, training, bespoke integrations. We really are getting you going within days, all very much prototype driven. It's one of our key methodologies when it comes to service management. We build the solution with your team. Not only do they take away the ability to make tweaks and changes moving forward, which is really important to us as Clearvision, but you also get to ask yourselves those questions. Why do we do this process in this manner? What is ITIL teaching us about slightly more improved ways of running a particular process? And then we take you through that process. The beauty of the SaaS platform is it's live, it's a prototype, you can show it to your leaders and it's turned on and you're good to go. The more you introduce forms of any kind as a habit and a ritual in your organisation, the sooner you will find the efficiencies are gained. For an IT, it must be so difficult, someone physically knocking on your door or via Teams or Slack. I've got a problem. It's always someone who's got a problem. It's normally the same people. I bet you guys out there in IT will be saying, so, put a wall in front of you that is to help people. It's not to block you off from them. It's just to say, no worries, we can deal with this, but I need to know X, Y, Z before we even begin. Again, talking about Jira service management, the ability to create these forms is really easy. It's all templated. You can have it. There's loads of examples on the internet, or of course Clearvision can show you. So just start to put some more forms in front of your various IT teams, and that will allow you to deal with requests as they come in. That's the same for incidents, same for change. Suddenly when you're combining tooling like that with tools like Teams and Slack, and you can begin to swarm on genuine problems that happen in IT, the efficiencies to resolution are high. And that's about showing your thought leadership in your role, showing your business how you feel you can deal with challenges better next time. If you've had an incident that required either out of hours, weekend work in the last few months, and you didn't feel that you were able to swarm well enough around that project, again, I would highly recommend looking at the Atlassian platform on this topic particularly. What I'm really enjoying within ITSM at the moment is it's almost like a reframing of it going on, where I like the phrase service management with IT. It means using technology to solve service management across the business. It doesn't matter which department you're in. Our HR team uses a service management solution. Why do they use it? For all the reasons that we've spoken about many times before. Imagine how many people come up to the physical or remote version of a HR desk. Oh, I've got a problem, this has happened. The topics are so wide ranging in HR as well. It's not even, as sort of succinct as maybe an IT request. It can be everything from personal right through to holiday, via pay, you name it. Every single topic is emotive, that's for sure. So how do you handle those type of requests? Again, you get the standard requests into a form. Holiday requests, pay rise requests, tour of duties. Can I ask you about this? I want to do a volunteering day if you're in the Pledge 1%. Any of those types of topics, super easy to create forms around. And again, the beauty of the tooling is how simple it is to use, because it's important that the users themselves feel empowered, they can respond to tickets. Also, as it gives a really easy trail of information. You're not in email trails trying to find an email saying, oh, you said I could have a pay rise on X date. It's all documented. Then, particularly in HR, which is a very process-driven and legal division of an organisation, you can start to reference all the documentation that you've built in Confluence. So again, it lives in the same platform. How do I do X? The chances are, using Jira Service Management, you can answer that question before the ticket's submitted. Again, that's a feature of JSM. It works really simply. You simply start to write a sentence out, and an article will be provided via the Confluence link up that probably answers the question. I use the old IT, use case, which is how do I reset my password? Anyone who's been an IT engineer will tell you that is pretty much lesson number one. What do we do in this newer world of efficiency? We answer the question before we've even received it. So you are only focusing on key project work that delivers value to yourself, the company, and the teams that you work with. So you're working in a Fortune 500 company. You're not using any efficiency tools to manage your workload. You still feel like probably the best way to solve this problem in your team is Excel, as much as it makes you want to cry. 83% of Fortune 500s actually have Jira in the business anyway. So what you can do is find out who owns it. That's the first thing. Who owns it? Speak to us, maybe we can help you with that. Because if you own it, suddenly your business case or request is a lot easier. That's the first thing. The second thing is, you might work in a Fortune 500 business and say, Paul, are you mental? I don't know the 150,000 people that work for us, so how am I meant to find that particular person? A problem in all large organisations, we know. So in that respect, you can actually start your own Jira cloud. Again, all on the website, Atlassian.com. So one of the beauties of the Atlassian software is how usable it is for small teams. You can start a free trial. You can actually start a very low user count free version of the tooling as well, which I sometimes use to manage some of my workload at home. With 5 kids, it's definitely needed. So that would be my recommendation. Can you add a bit of value to your team at low cost? You can either use the free version, the smaller credit card version, or quite, obviously buy through Clearvision for a lower team number, and just build out that solution to solve your problem. You'll notice that when you start solving these problems and become more efficient, your business, other areas of your business will take note and go, how are you doing that? Why are you getting through your work so quickly? Why do your team seem happier? Why do they seem more focused on key outcomes, not responding to fires? These are all the ways which we must all take ownership for solving problems in our business. And that's a really good example of a way to do it. So the stat is 83% of Fortune 500 customers already use Jira. If you're in a team that isn't gaining efficiencies and feel frustrated, you've got 2 options. Speak to the ownership of Atlassian in your business, see if you can utilise some of that software. And the second thing is to do it yourself. Start a free trial, get a few team members on it, and just start small. Maybe you'll just do it for a few of you. Maybe you're working on a particular initiative that you feel would really benefit from being structured, especially if it's got a hard deadline at the end of the quarter. See if you can gain some insight into the tooling yourself and empower yourself. So we all love email, even though it's probably the oldest technology that we still use to this day. It's certainly no Nokia 3210. Now, something to consider with email is actually, and you've probably all been a victim of this in some capacity, you may not have clicked the link, but receiving some form of phishing email where it spoofs maybe the CTO's name or a colleague's name. Can be sometimes quite hard to work out, particularly if you're rushed in a team and this is the way you receive information, i.e. requests. The chances are that you'll take it slightly more at face value if it's not an absolutely crazy written email. The challenges, therefore, are you're exposing yourselves to security risks. The challenge is that you're exposing yourself to security risks. So again, the introduction of some form of service desk will really help with that, because the person who's only able to submit the request has to be registered within your AD rather than being an anonymous email user. So another thing to consider. It's no coincidence that Atlassian have created their SaaS platform to appeal to all types of teams, disciplines and maturity. What this does raise the question is, have we got too much technology trying to manage the workload that we have? And the answer is probably very likely. You might have an Excel going, you might have, obviously you got your email, you're going to have Slack and Teams pinging away all day. You may, during the COVID times, have jumped quite quickly to other tooling, for example, Monday.com or equivalent. What we found is that was really common over the last couple of years. Everyone needed something. What we're now seeing is, certainly in the UK, as COVID has passed through its worst phase, we are seeing organisations go, okay, we've gone remote, we need to get a better handle on the agile based practices and delivery and projects that are taking place in our organisation and under the various initiatives that take place. I've been on multiple calls in the last weeks about this topic. So that's where, have you got too much technology? Probably. Most organisations, certainly of an enterprise level, will say we pretty much own every tool going. So it's not really about the tool. It's about looking at the ways you want to perform your business in your team. And then the business needs to ask itself the question, how do we want to understand what teams are doing? How do we align agile 2-week delivery sprints with maybe annual initiatives that really add to the bottom line of our organisation? And that's where the Atlassian platform is really helping, because it is a platform. Put all your people on it, put them in the right place, doesn't matter which department, and make sure there's some simple metrics that can be aligned across all projects and all deliverables right up to a higher level. Doesn't necessarily mean a product like Jira aligned to oversee the portfolio, but it's that direction. So that's something we're seeing an awful lot more of now. It should also lead you to ask yourself the question, am I using the right tools for the job? And really reviewing those internally and focusing on, again, what is required from your job personally and your team personally to achieve the corporate objectives that you've been set for this year. So you're running your team using email and Excel. You're finishing too late, you're stressing at the weekend, you're that person who's left at 10 p.m. on a Monday updating the spreadsheet because there's a big meeting with all the bosses on Tuesday morning. That is a tough gig. So the introduction of these collaborative work management tools like the Atlassian platform can really help you. Collaboration is one of the areas that they can really help you. So first of all, of course, you get the one source of truth. It's your team's job to fill in the correct data in a certain place as they do their work on a daily basis. No more filling in the Excel spreadsheet at 9:30 p.m. because you've got to do your 10 p.m. work on a Tuesday. That's the first thing. But one of the greatest gains, I feel, is actually the collaborative aspect of using tooling like this, because we all know when we're getting work done, it's just not a single person game, this at all. It's always about our colleagues, our mixtures of skills, our mixtures of personality types to really bring to fruition a deliverable that's been sent either by our boss or by the senior management in the organisation. So the tooling helps you distribute the work, of course, but then it's other tools like the collaborative platform Confluence that then allow you to embed documentation and work on a single view together. So you can both be in different remote locations, you can be on Confluence, and you can both edit the same document together. Maybe you've got a colleague who's a bit of a whiz with the numbers and you're more of a wordsmith. Bring you two together so together you are working on the same output, and you can be in the same meeting, you can have a bit of a laugh whilst you're doing it. I love working in that way, rather than that idea of, Dave does his document on Word, saves it as version 1 and sends it to Mary. That for me that was the way I was working about 12 years ago, and it just frightens me that people are working like that now, especially when the cost to enter these types of tools is it's negligible for small teams. Especially when you start comparing ROI and efficiencies, it blows it out the water. So that's one of the things I would look at is the collaborative aspect of this tooling that we've already talked about today.